We're going to be joined right now by Anna Sales, who's our reporter in New Hampshire. Anna, are you on the line right now?
I am. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, we can indeed.
Terrific.
What do you heard the question? I mean, the passion. There seems to be a passion gap in this primary, with the exception perhaps of Ron Paul's candidacy. What are you seeing on the ground?
Well, I certainly found that talking to even Romney's supporters over the last several days traveling around New Hampshire. There were folks who had sort of made the decision to vote for Mitt Romney, but they certainly didn't sound excited about it. It was sort of like, well, I've looked at everybody.
And I'm afraid we lost you. Anna, are you back?
I'm here.
Okay, where are you, by the way?
I'm here in Manchester, New Hampshire at the John Huntsman Returns Party that is getting fuller and fuller. It was just reporters for a while here, but the folks I've talked to here, there were a lot of independent voters here, some who even voted for Barack Obama in the 2008 primary, and we're hoping that John Huntsman would do well here in New Hampshire to send a message that the sort of hyper-partisanship in Washington needed to go. It's not clear yet if they're going to be happy with the results that we're seeing come in, but we'll certainly hear from him later in the evening here. Sounds like Mitt Romney's going to be doing his victory lap before that, though.
Well, a number of news organizations are now projecting Ron Paul, including CNN. They're projecting Ron Paul as coming in number 2. Does that surprise you?
Not from my experience talking to voters. I think the Ron Paul support in New Hampshire is strong, and it's not just the sort of fringy Ron Paul supporters that, chant and show up with signs all over. I talked to a lot of folks who, small business owners, mostly younger people, I would say 40 and under, who tended to be Ron Paul supporters, but they were committed, and they were very much attracted to his anti-establishment kind of strain. They wanted to send a message to Washington that the amount of spending, the amount of debt just cannot stand. And so I think they're going to be quite pleased with their results as they're coming in right now.
Now, Anna, now it's clear that among those who pushed Ron Paul into second place, as projected, are independent voters. Are independent voters in New Hampshire different from independent voters anywhere else, in your view?
Well, I think we use the term independent voters in the media in sort of a misleading way. In New Hampshire, as in the rest of the country, it doesn't really mean that you're a swing voter or that you're moderate. It mostly just means that you don't want to be a member of either the Democrat or the Republican Party. And that's the tradition here in New Hampshire. The electorate, 40% are unaffiliated independent voters. And these are folks who can show up on primary day and vote in a primary. So, of course, there's no contested Democratic primary this year. Independents showed up to the polls. But what I find interesting is the exit polls that I've seen show that it wasn't just Ron Paul getting these unaffiliated voters, it wasn't just John Huntsman getting them, but Romney and Ron Paul seemed to led with the independent voter support, and then John Huntsman came in right behind them. So even the unaffiliated voters here in New Hampshire were split.
Hey, Anna, a quick question. You're in the dark there. Is Huntsman trying to save money on lights or what? I mean, is he saving up for South Carolina?
It's a factor of all of the reporters who have crowded in here. I found a little spot on the floor here, and don't have a lot of lights. But I'm surrounded by cameras and tripods, so I apologize for the darkness.
Okay, well, Anna, we're going to go to Mitt Romney headquarters. Let me do this. We have Anna Sales on the line right now. Anna, you're still at Huntsman headquarters, and how are people reacting to this win by Mitt Romney? Obviously, it's not a surprise.
Well, it's not a surprise, and from what I can tell, they turned up the music during Mitt Romney's speech, so it didn't captivate the audience here. They're partying on like nothing's happened quite yet. So there's not been a hush over the crowd or anything like that.
And what is this number 3? CNN is projecting Huntsman at number 3 in New Hampshire. What does that mean for his campaign and for the candidate?
Well, at this point, I want to hear what the candidate has to say about that. How does he talk about tonight? What does he say about what's next? How does he talk about these results in New Hampshire? Is he happy with them? Does he move on to South Carolina? And what's his message? So I think that's what we'll learn when we hear from John Huntsman tonight.
And, well, of course, Romney seems to not be paying much attention to the Huntsmans of the world. But as Michael Goldman just pointed out, there is concern about, there's obviously some concern about the message that came out of New Hampshire this week with Romney talking about, with Gingrich and Santorum and Huntsman bringing up Bain Capital as an issue. How's that playing there in your view?
Well, I haven't heard the Bain issue come up with any of the voters that I've talked to. The Romney sort of reluctance was more about feeling like they couldn't trust him, or they didn't just feel like they connected with him. And that could be, the Bain issue again brings up the idea that Mitt Romney's been a very successful businessman, and he was involved in private equity, which closed companies and people lost jobs. So that certainly doesn't help his reputation as somebody that voters connect with. But I thought it was interesting. I mean, Mitt Romney's speech, he was appealing to independence. There was that line in there about, if you're happy with the benefits as they are, I'm not your president. But if you want to restore American greatness, I'm your president. He wasn't appealing to Republican primary voters there. He was appealing to the general electorate.
And so let's switch again to Huntsman. What an interesting campaign he's run in New Hampshire. Boots on the ground, door to door. He's done what a lot of candidates have not done, and it seems to have paid off for him. We're going to go back to Anna Sale, who is in New Hampshire at Huntsman's headquarters. Anna, you just heard my comment. Boots on the ground, door to door. It seems to have paid off. What's your view there?
Well, New Hampshire voters love to be courted, and John Huntsman did that here. But, Ron Paul courted voters here, but also had an extensive organization on the ground. So, John Huntsman's returns here are, I think, in part because of the time he invested here, but also he's a moderate Republican. His appeal to independence and really fit with the makeup of this electorate. So it made sense for John Huntsman to invest so much time here. What the pathway forward, though, is in this Republican-nominated contest is a little bit more of a question. Which also brings up the question, you said Ron Paul. You talked about Ron Paul and you compared that to Huntsman. Have you come across people who couldn't make up their minds between Ron Paul and Huntsman? Are they the same voter? I found a lot of Romney-Ron Paul folks who were sort of couldn't decide between those two. John Huntsman people seemed to be John Huntsman people. They were won over by his, campaigning here. They liked his moderate approach, and they knew they weren't, even folks here tonight I've talked to, they knew they weren't picking a winner, but they wanted to make a statement about kind of the direction of the Republican Party. Ron Paul, on the other hand, was sort of the anti-establishment choice for voters who were also checking out Mitt Romney. So I think that's why it's really compelling 1 and 2.
Are you finding that President Obama has serves as someone who can coalesce these various splits in the party that we were just talking about here? Is there any evidence of that you've seen on the ground in New Hampshire?
Well, I've run into a lot of independents who supported Barack Obama in 2008 and who are looking to vote Republican in 2012. Of course, it depends on who the nominee is. I talked to a Ron Paul supporter who said, if Ron Paul's not on the ballot, I'm absolutely voting for Barack Obama. So it could cut a bunch of different ways. I mean, there's a reason the Democratic National Committee has been focusing on Mitt Romney for the last, several months. They have been focusing their attacks exclusively almost on him because they don't want to run against Mitt Romney. And they didn't see, John Huntsman just never proved to be the threat in the Republican primary field that they feared. But Mitt Romney, if he's able to make, connect on this appeal to independent voters that we heard tonight, that's what the Obama administration is afraid of.
And this passion that we've seen for Ron Paul, are you seeing that at all in among Huntsman supporters this evening?
I haven't heard that overlap. I think they may be out there, but I haven't run into it. I mean, what Ron Paul makes me think about is I was just thinking about Ross Perot in 1992. We're talking about this third-party run, and the thing about Ross Perot, he had a populist appeal. He was also sort of dismissed as fringy and also kind of ran into some trouble with some some kind of whether he had some racist overtones in some of his past. So that's kind of an interesting comparison to think about. Is 2012 going to end up looking like 92?
You know, one of the questions that certainly comes to mind in regard to Jon Huntsman, even if he goes on to South Carolina, where does the money come from? And I'm going to turn to our guest for a second, Anna, here in studio, and ask that question. Huntsman comes from a lot of money. His father has a lot of money. He's a millionaire. He hasn't been willing, it seems, to spend that. Will he spend it now? And what will that mean for Mitt Romney's campaign going forward if he has to come up against a more formidable, actually financed Jon Huntsman?
Well, it's interesting to me because what I see starting to happen already in South Carolina is that Gingrich's super PAC has bought a big ad buy, $3.5 million, to go at the Bain issue against Mitt Romney. Will Mitt Romney respond? And a lot of times what happens in politics, and Michael knows, you get two top candidates that start shooting at each other, and somebody like a Jon Huntsman or Rick Santorum run some positive messages and get out there and campaign, and they shoot the gap, and they rise to the top. So I don't know that's going to necessarily happen in South Carolina. Maybe for Huntsman, Santorum maybe could benefit from this, and maybe Huntsman somewhere like Florida could also benefit. And then this primary just goes on.
Absolutely, and that's what happened in Iowa with John Kerry when you had those two candidates. You had Dean and you had
Gebhardt and Dean. Yeah,
Gebhardt killed each other, and he slid up. I don't know if there's enough time really for Huntsman in South Carolina, and there's only so many primaries you can skip. I could see his father's, the independent PAC, going down to Florida, which has a lot of market area. It's a big state for a good retail campaign, spending a lot of money down there and trying to put their second flag in the Florida marketplace.
Okay, we're going to